Hey everybody, welcome back to Balance Exchange. I'm Papa Bear here with
Cronus, and this episode we're going to talk about aging because it's terrible,
so awesome.
sort of. That's all, you can tell our personalities by the answers. It's awesome. It's
It
terrible.
was so perfect that we said awesome.
It is. It's both terrible and awesome. So,
Yeah.
hey, it's me, Rasan. I don't know, man. Huge hole in my,
Yeah, just in
understanding. My fellow Americans.
Papa here.
As long as whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anyone else, I don't care.
Different perspective of what an interesting topic is than I would assume.
This is Balance Exchange. All right. So we have to do our normal thing. What are we drinking?
So starting with, I have two Trulies. I'm doing the seltzers. They picked me up a pack because there's a seltzer set with new flavors. So these are black cherry. I have another one. I have a raspberry lime sitting here, so I'm gonna crack that open.
Nice. All right. And I'm drinking the Stone Woot Stout, which is an excellent stout. This one is it's an imperial stout brewed with pecans, wheat, and rye, and 1/4 aged in bourbon barrels. It's 11.5% alcohol. I love this entire series. They've been doing it for a while, and it's what do you call it? Collaboration beer. So Drew Curtis, who I don't know, obviously he's a brewer, but Will Wheaton is one of the other brewers. So it's Wesley Crusher from
Yeah.
you know, Star Trek, not Discovery, Generations, and then Greg Koch from Stone.
He also does the audiobook reads for a lot of really great books,
Yes.
including Ready Player One.
Yes, and every time I listen to that book, he has a pretty good voice. So
Yeah, he does a good job reading.
yeah.
And he's in Big Bang Theory too.
Or
A
is
lot.
I can't watch that show, man. It's one of those things. I'm like, you guys aren't that smart.
No, it's funny. It's funny.
He's smart. I perceive him as smart anyway.
Yeah.
But the rest of the guys, I'm like, I don't know.
You said so that one you mentioned pecans in it, and I hadn't even considered that. That sounds like that would be really good in a beer. Like, does that come forward in it a lot, or is it kind of not like it's really so?
Not right now, because I'm so with some stouts, you can age them out, and this is the last one I'm going to drink, kind of fresh. I have one more left, and I'm going to age that one. So some beers like the subtle flavors like pecans and stuff like that, they come in kind of later on, as it mellows out. But you can taste it a little bit, but it's not that much.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like that'd be a really good beer combo flavor. So
Yeah, yeah. And they've been doing this beer for at least 5 years, probably more than that. And every year I try to get it, and you can get them. You can get them aged too. That's one of the cool things about Stone is that you can get some of their beers already aged for you. So you can enjoy. So they do this thing called Vertical Epic, which is a line of beer they have in every single year. They like kind of hopscotch like the releases, and they'll have like one of them's like I think more than 10 years old. So it's kind of cool. All right, so
what are you reading?
yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing. All right, I just got finished reading today, Theft of Swords, and it's the Rhaenyra Revelations Book 1. It's pretty good.
Hmm.
I've enjoyed it. It's long.
So I'm on Hellion
Nice.
for the things, but in the time in between too, I also read Powerful Teaching. So I like finished off Tarot, and I needed to read this for work because I was like, I heard really good things about some of the strategies in it and how easy they are employing in the classroom, and I've already started like myself using some of the strategies and coaching like my instructors towards, because these are a lot of these ones like strategies in that book are things that have like big long-term impact on learning, but are also like take no time or money or planning to like implement. It's literally just taking a couple minutes in the classroom to do things a little differently so that you engage the students. And so I've been trying to like get more of those, more teachers, more instructors able to use those strategies. And then I started using them myself. So I was like, I gotta read this book in between. It's only like 8 hours, so it was easy to crank that out and then start Hellion. So.
Yeah, I listened to just before this book. It was hold on. I read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, which is a really good book. It's just very short listen. It's like maybe it's less than 3 hours long, but it's really good to hear about like his experience as a black man, kind of back in the day, in like the civil rights era, and he has like kind of a unique experience on it. So yeah, I'm gonna probably read more of his books. He's like one of those civil rights people that most people don't know about because he saw what was going on in America and he just fucking left. he went to France and he was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. And he still gives his experience on like what it was like to live in America. And he still came back to America and wrote books and gave lectures and stuff like that. So if you have a chance to like watch some of his debates and stuff like that, he has a pretty sharp mind that is not a well-known figure for some reason. It's kind of weird.
Well, it's probably that like it's external thing, and plus French, right? Americans have issues now. But that idea that identified the issue and saw that it was something that wasn't going to be fixed in his lifetime, and knew it would be better and probably could have more impact potentially by getting outside of it and being able to then affect it. So it's interesting perspective on things I'd be interested to read about, because sometimes that's the best way to solve those problems is move away from it and then affect it from outside.
Yeah, and it's like
Cool.
it's really interesting that somebody from like back then, he saw like the serious issues of liberalism and like kind of like the wokeness thing and like how it is not helpful for people of color. Even back then, he was just like, you're trying to fix these things in your way that aren't helpful to us. Like you just want to like lord over us to like fix these things when like the fixing needs to come from internally, and like we have issues, and it's not. Some people do it just for kind of like social brownie points, you know, and
Yeah.
that's not the way you should come. And you see it more now, but it's insane that he saw it back then and would call it out, and it's still a problem.
I was just thinking I could imagine like the same social media atmosphere stuff like in newspapers. Like everybody just posting their little personals about like sorry. I just saw it like going from the same way people look for those brownie points in their own social media things, but instead it would have been within public circles and within your groups, but never really having any actual impact by saying things but never doing anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's like one of the reasons why I don't like the woke movement per se, and I don't like to consider myself woke at all, because I think some people that consider themselves woke, like they think that they got all the answers and they're just done. Like, I got all the answers, this is how it's going to be, and we're good. And it's just like, I am nowhere near being able to solve anything, but I can definitely identify the issues, you know what I mean, and see that it's a problem. But I think that some people on the more liberal side, like they just think that, oh, this is like some easy thing you can solve, we can deal with this. It's like, no, like these are really complicated issues, and if you think you have all the answers, then that's your first real big mistake. So.
I mean, that's like a lesson that you probably I think everybody kind of starts to learn if you're actually interested in learning as you get older.
Yeah.
Is that if you ever think you have all the answers, then you definitely are wrong, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you think it is, you're probably wrong. I actually just had that conversation with my boss. Like, he's like, so what are things we're doing and what are things we can work on? We had our first kind of like in brief because he's new. And I was like, here's what I'll tell you is that I can definitely tell you things I see that are issues and how, like, some solutions for them, but I'm not going to have all the answers, right? I have recommendations, and I think that the best solution is that we bring these together and have everybody work towards that. He's like, yeah, that's definitely the way I'm planning on running these. I just need to start picking up on what you think the problems are, especially with the amount of experience I have. He's like, what do you think are things that we need to work on, and then let's see if we can find solutions for it. So it was good to have him be receptive to that, but also just like to identify that about myself, even to be like, look, I have lots of answers, but that doesn't mean they're the right answers. I have ways I think we can handle those. That doesn't mean they're the only way, and someone else's suggestion could probably even be better. And it actually happened in a meeting not too long ago where we're talking about solutions for it. I had already presented like some stuff I thought about and how we could get at it. Someone said something, I think it was like a staff sergeant too, said, well, we could maybe do this and this. I was like, holy crap, that's a way better way to do it. It takes less. We can get it done faster. Like, we could be doing that tomorrow instead of the thing I'm talking about. It just takes 6 months to do. Let's do that instead. Can we go that way? Because that's awesome. And they're like, yeah. And we all kind of came to a group like, we'll work towards that, and I'll put some effort into that too. I think that we all have to be ready to do that.
Well, I think that's real wisdom. But before we get into it, we'll take a quick break for the disclaimer.
So at this point in watching our videos, you may or may not know that I am an active duty United States Marine. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I know that it's really important for me to make sure to get this out there. If it's your first time watching this, please stick around and make sure you understand the disclaimer. If you've watched a whole lot of our episodes so far, feel free to go ahead and jump ahead to the new content. So what I need to talk about today is that I am not authorized and have no way of being approved to speak on behalf of the Marine Corps. So any opinion that I give or any concept that I discuss today is the position and the opinion of just me, myself, just a man who has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in leadership and organizational management, and has spent my whole life looking at government structures and social contracts and how these things are supposed to work, what the philosophies and things behind them are, and read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And it's definitely one of my personal and key passions. And so when you hear me maybe give a position or a concept on something, that is only my own position. I am not a public affairs officer for the Marine Corps. I am in no way giving what the Marine Corps' official position on anything would be. And honestly, a lot of the topics we're going to cover here, I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps doesn't have a particular position on. So if you do have any questions about what the Marine Corps' policy on certain things could be, you can definitely research that and find those out, or leave a comment or send us a message if you can get a hold of us somehow, and we can maybe be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, let's get you back to this week's content.
All right, we're back. So, one of the first, I don't want to start off on like some depressing shit. All right, so I want to start off.
Or you don't want to?
I don't want to. I want to start off on something that's kind of more uplifting about getting older, and it's sort of what you were just talking about is actually gaining real wisdom as you age. And I think it's something that when you're young, you have older people that tell you these things, and you don't understand. I think that most young people don't have the capacity to understand things because they think that once they're introduced to some sort of data of any kind, that they understand it, and they understand, like, they might possibly understand it, but they don't understand the context or like how it can, how that data can really change on if you apply it to other things in different, relationships and stuff like that. I mean, I think that's something you don't really have a chance to really dig into until you see like all these different perspectives through, going around the sun a bunch of times, Yeah. So, like your example that you're giving about the, the staff sergeant, like a younger, warrant officer or even a younger boss would hear a staff sergeant's, suggestion and be like, no, I got all the answers, because they lack wisdom. They lack the fact that there are things that we are not going to know, and that we might not have the connections available to understand everything on that certain subject, and then ego gets in the way of, well, my way is the way that's going to be done, and that's the best way it could possibly be, and that's where you hit issues.
So the unfortunate reality too is that age does not necessarily equal wisdom either, right? So it takes someone putting effort forth in taking the time throughout that time to actually apply their experience, consider what it is they're doing, do a little bit of metacognition, like using a big science brain word there, right? Actually think about how you got to where you have these concepts, like why do I think this way? And most people don't spend time thinking about that. And honestly, talking about, something we talk about all the time, if you're in a scarcity mindset, you don't have time to think about this kind of stuff. Yeah. You're focused on survival and these needs, and not why you might think a certain way or how you even actually feel about a subject. You're not worried about that stuff. So these deep philosophical concepts can't always be applied by everyone. So yeah, age does not immediately equal wisdom. I'm actually at a part in Hellion right now where that potentially is the case, right?
Yeah, it's a great book.
But then to make that point too, then these characters prove that it's possible to be young and still have wisdom, especially in specific areas where that person has more experience with that exact scenario than the other person does, even though they're older. So maybe they don't understand what that is, or they think that they do, and or think that they know that that person's so young, so they couldn't possibly have experience with it, and then they just immediately discount it. Like you said, some other officers might have just not listened because they're inexperienced. I just don't even have to listen to you. But that perspective, that one experience they had, let them have the opportunity to say, this is a better way to maybe do what we're talking about that I didn't have. So why would I not listen? You know, you just have to be paying attention, and it's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is hard because it's hard to have like a pliable mind as you age and like being a lifelong learner, or autodidact. I use the fancy word again.
You
I,
did.
yeah, I think if you like, if you go through your life like with the same static mindset and don't understand like your own personal flaws, then the whole wisdom thing as you get older, like you're not getting really wiser or really gaining much wisdom because you're stuck in that mindset. So it kind of works both ways where you can get a lot of people, they get older and they're still living that 20-year-old mindset. Their body's just getting older, but they're not taking advantage of really going through their own personal experiences and understanding like all these things that happen. You should use all those things together along with new information to really shape your view on life. And there's a lot of old people that we're not old by any means, like we're quote unquote middle aged, but a lot of people that are our age or older, like they're still just they're stuck in that mindset, and I don't think that a lot of them they just can't get out of that because they think that just because they're old that they know everything or they know like the most that can be done, in a certain area. And it's just like to me that's sad as fuck. Like when I see somebody that's older that is stuck in their ways, it's like you're missing out on a lot. Like if you're just like, oh, it's the millennials' fault, like maybe understand like the millennials, like they're what they're going through right now. Because I think a lot of us we don't give the younger generation the benefit of the doubt, because yeah, we've been through like crappy times, but we've also had the time to really gain, wealth and knowledge and hopefully wisdom, but they're not there yet. So let them, make their mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. We all did.
Yeah, but you gotta be careful, remember, because I'm a millennial.
Yeah. Well, technically, I guess, yeah, you are. Yeah. Because you're a couple years younger than me. So, yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Just about to turn 40, so 1981, which makes me about as old as a millennial could be.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Literally as old as a millennial could be. So, like if someone was a couple months older than me, sure. Like Cindy is a millennial too, and so she's older than me, but
I still don't think you guys are like. There's an argument to be made that people that were born in the early '80s should not. I still consider you guys Gen Xers because I'm a Gen Xer. I was born in '79. If you can remember a time before the internet, I don't think you're a millennial. So,
but I mean. It also that unique perspective of, I think high school time, right, was when it started becoming available to everyone, and that's a hugely developmental time for all of us. So the fact that we were in these prime developmental times in our life, right as this huge shift in technology and communications and everything for the internet comes around, makes us, it's like our age is the perfect group to say we're kind of this crossover thing. We're really not the Gen X, and we're really not the youngest end of our stuff too, but this weird middle ground. I don't mind being that. It is important to say, like, I think maybe that's part of why I am capable of thinking about things differently, because we've had to see two very drastically different things in our life, especially at a key moment. We went from, so I was only like 6 years old or 7 years old or something, and we got a Nintendo, right? And that's huge. You can now have a home game system. You don't have to go to the arcade, and it started that shift for everything being able to become more accessible, more easy, more at home. We don't have to go to do these things. I mean, I still did. We still had arcades growing up. We could still go to them. I had nickel arcades. I don't know if you guys had those.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just. But then now you go and look, and like finding an arcade is like a rare thing. You're like, oh, this is super cool. Look at this arcade, and
I
that
remember,
transition.
Yeah, well, I remember like with arcades specifically because I used to be a huge gamer. I used to go to tournaments for at arcades, and then obviously the internet came around, so I could do tournaments online and stuff like that. And seeing like I remember being young and being like going to arcades. It's like, yeah, I have a Nintendo or Super Nintendo or an Atari or whatever, but like there's no way that I could easily get the graphical the same graphics at home that you could in the arcade. Like to me, it seemed like it was fucking impossible until the Neo Geo. But even then, it was like $600. Back then, it's basically a fucking $1,000,000. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I thought it was gonna be impossible, and then all of a sudden, like slowly, not even slowly, it's probably really quickly, like PC graphics like started eclipsing, the arcades, and that's when you really saw the death of the arcades. Is like when
Mm.
PC started peaking the graphical abilities, and then you saw consoles coming right behind them. It's like, man, that was it was nails in the coffin for the arcade. But I still enjoy going to arcades. I still do.
Same. Yeah, same. I was on a work trip to North Carolina and we were driving to drop someone else off, and I caught out of the corner of my eye that the classic look of you see neon and I was like, what is all that? And I could tell as soon as I looked at it, I was like, that's an arcade. I'm gonna go over there and check that out. And like right up front, they had the brand new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4-player arcade with the new graphics. I was like, I'm playing the heck out of that game because I remember the old one, and it plays just like it. It's just like newer art style, newer graphics, but still the same gameplay. I was like, this is fun. We played that game for like an hour. So,
And it's sad that kids nowadays they don't get that. I mean, they get it, and obviously they have the online experience, but it's different.
Mhm.
It's different.
It is.
Like, we have like social media, but I think people kind of forget about the actual like social experience of like actually going and like today especially it's like really skewed because COVID's happening. You know, if you're social distancing, like I think me and probably most of my friends are doing, unless we're vaccinated, like we'll hang out a little bit now, but back then, like going to an arcade, meeting up with your friends, and meeting new people, like learning the rivals for your, the best guy against like the best guy, and like literally watching them play like a fighting game together. You'd have like a crowd of people all around just to like watch this one event, and it was so amazing. Like, and kids will never get that again. They will never. You can watch it on TV. You can go to esports arena, but it was way different when you're in some dingy ass arcade and you're watching these two people just go at it at a video game, and then put your quarter up to like play next. Like it's just that's gone forever, basically.
And I thought that was where you were going when you were talking about the graphics, like once or what you couldn't when you were playing the games, what you couldn't get with your Nintendo was that social environment piece of just being around other people and being at the arcade and not waiting in line for the next game. Like, hey, I got next, man. You've been running for 15 minutes. I want to play the next game. I thought that was where you're going. Like, you can't. There's no way I could have this social interaction, this great fun with my friends, playing my Nintendo at home. But then, then you get the 4-player, and then you get the ability to, play it online, and it does start to change things. I thought that's kind of where you were going with it, but the graphics capability piece is a big part of it too.
Yeah, well, the social perspective, I think for game, honestly, I've seen the shift in social game, in like just in the social aspect of like online gaming, and it's honestly it's depressing, man. I remember back in the day when I play Unreal online, and I would play Quake, and I would play StarCraft and all these other things. Like everybody was so respectful online. You might get a 1 in 100 of like a jerk, 1 in 100. But I was never called the N word, in like the 90s, early 2000s. Not until like the Xbox like 360 era, when I started hopping on like playing like Call of Duty, and I was just like, man, you guys are like, what is wrong with you? I think that when it came to like the 90s and early 2000s, is because we remembered what it was like to go to arcades, and like you would never say like really rude things to a person at an arcade like that, like and expect to like just get away with it. But when you do it online, like you remove that barrier of you might get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? And so that allowed some of these kids to just be so foul, online, and it's just like, man.
So a little off topic, but that's like that distance and killing thing we talked about with On Killing from Grossman 2, where like it gets easier and easier to actually pull the trigger and know that you're killing people. If you're further away from me, like, I don't actually see what it is I'm hitting with this artillery round that's going out there. I'm told to shoot it. I shoot it at this location. Whatever happens on the other end, I'm not doing that. That's that thing all the way over there.
Yeah.
It's the team, the UAV becomes the easy thing to use because I'm not actually doing it. It's way, way over there.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that, where these social actions, which we wouldn't do for a couple of reasons, right? It's just you're taught not to because it's just rude to do that to someone. But then also, like, his 3 friends might be right around the corner and come kick your ass. Like, I'm not doing that. So you don't have that online. There's none of that fear because I'm never going to see this person. I may never have to interact with them again, and they're not even real. There's just some line or some voice on the other end of this thing. I don't have to worry about it. I can be a jerk to them. So
yeah,
you get that some of that's happening in Awaken Online too, where they're like, all the rest of the travelers are all jerks. They were like, we're really engaged or invested in what's going on with this online world. They're treating it still like these aren't even real people, and you guys aren't real people. You're just people in a game. I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, you see that now. I mean, like, yeah, it's like I think that a lot, especially kids that are just getting into online gaming, like, they don't understand, like, you're talking to a person. You know what I mean? Like, these are real people. And if you've never seen the person, like, why would you even think that they're real? Especially when you're young. You would never think that they if you've never seen them physically, like, why would you even think they're real? You don't care about their feelings. You don't care about their family. You don't care about what they went through at school. You don't care about any of that. But it's lacking empathy. And it's like, yeah, I think that there's a long way to go. I think that social media, this whole rise, 'cause that wraps into the same issue, is like having social media, of like saying like whatever you want online, and having very little repercussions, if any. And then now when there is any sort of repercussions, people are just like, oh, my rights. I'm like, no, these aren't rights. You don't have a right to
be a jerk.
Yeah, to be a jerk. You don't. I'm like, you don't. Go say the same things that you're saying online to a person in real life, and then see what happens. There's immediate consequences that you have to deal with.
So, despite the fact that we're talking about how social media causes this thing, as you said, that the first thing I thought of was that would be a really interesting channel where we take social, like, look at social media and see things that people say and go say that to someone in real life. Like, go to a store and do it and record it and see what happens. And put that out there. Like, hey, this person said this to someone on Facebook. I'm going to go out and I'm going to say it to someone in a store, and I'm going to record what happens and watch it. Like, it literally just be recordings of you getting your ass kicked, probably quite a few times. So maybe you should think about why that's not appropriate and understand that these aren't. I guarantee that it would be entertaining to watch.
It would, but it's like, I think it's like it's a human interaction disconnection, and I'm worried for the future, because of that basic social interaction connection. I didn't, when people say social media is like so bad, it's like, I don't think it's that bad, but at the same time, like, I get where they're coming from, but it took me a while to like really realize that, and that comes back to like getting wiser. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like, if you're a kid and you never had to deal with like being like super negative against somebody online, and you never had like any real repercussions, like, I think that kid is going to be degraded in their social interactions in life. It's going to be a degraded person for the rest of their life, more than likely.
And I can see it being a place where someone who maybe is bullied or maybe is treated poorly, and that's the experience they have, feels safe, right, by doing it on this online thing where they don't have to deal with actually interacting with people that way. But then they, it's one of those learned behavior is the same behavior that I kind of put out there into the world.
Yeah.
Without realizing necessarily that they're also still now having this negative impact on other people's lives. And where in real life they wouldn't go do that because they feel terrible being bullied and being treated a certain way, and would never do that to another person, but then doing it online makes them feel better, despite the fact that they're still making someone else feel that way, even though they don't realize that, right? Because they don't have to deal with seeing that person or actually feeling like that's even really a person. So it's like this really weird, dangerous psychological area we're probably moving into, where psychiatrists are going to have to develop whole other strategies for understanding this particular aspect of it too. It's like the differences between our behaviors with real people and with people online, and how that could affect people's psyche. That's interesting. You brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it now. Like, I don't know if you're following like the Olympics, but with Simone Biles, with her pulling out of the Olympics, and like just like the vitriol that I've been reading about people that are so angry with her about pulling out of the Olympics, and they're just so totally trashing the most decorated gymnast
Yeah.
of all time, and they're just like, oh well, she's taking up a spot on the team for. I'm just like, are you serious? She's got 27 gold medals. 27.
It's time for someone else to go get some. But yeah,
it's insane to me.
I remember seeing something about it too. It's like between what she's done, and then so I saw most of the people that I have on mine again because we kind of choose who we interact with and what we follow, right?
Yeah.
And being wiser, we learn to kind of filter people who we don't want to be around or see or understand. And sometimes that creates a bias. Like we only see the information we want to see. But I've mostly only gotten people who were on the defending it side, I guess, because all I saw two where someone was talking about how did this, did that, did this, already a hero kind of thing. Honestly, without even knowing what the context was, I was like, oh, cool. I did not even know there was this whole other side to that story, which was why they're putting these defending her position memes up there, was that there was this negative thing happening. I thought they were just saying, my first instinct when I saw it was like, oh man, she didn't medal or something. Like, did an event and didn't do as well as normal. It's like, don't even start on that, dude. You know how awesome she is. But then to find this out, it's like, okay, well, that now makes a lot more sense as to why they're defending what she's doing. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how we can get that way.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, and it's just like more recently, I've been trying to be like a kinder person. And I think that's another thing I want to bring up. So, we're going to continue on being, positive for a little bit.
Positive.
Sort of positive. Even though part of that was kind of depressing, but is like if you're in a certain mindset as you get older, you have like an option of like I said before, being set in your ways, or you can really learn to be a better person. And part of that, at least for me, as I've aged, is learning how to be a kinder person. And I think that it's a very difficult transition, especially with my background. I was I am a U.S. Marine. Before that, I used to be a bully when I was like in junior high, elementary school. Then I found like all new friends. And I decided not to be a bully anymore because I was like, man, like I got bullied, then I became a bully, and I was just like, what am I doing?
Learn behavior.
Yeah, learn behavior. Then I joined the Marine Corps, which is hyper masculine. And then like after that, I was living this life where I just how do I put this in like a good way, I guess, or more of a balanced way? Of just thinking that I kind of knew everything, that it was my way or my fucking way, and just being just an asshole for really no reason, and like taking a step back and being like, hey, maybe let's not do that, and try to help people and not just be a dick. And that takes some time, and it's still like a process that I'm going through, but it's just like if I can be kind, if it's an option, then let's at least attempt to take that route to be kind.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, they don't even think about being kind. They just want to go to like the most hurtful thing that they can do to somebody if somebody slights them at all. Or just in general, just hurt them in general. It's just like, why are you doing this? Like, to me, it comes down to like insecurities, because from my own personal experience, it's insecurities mostly, and it's cowardice that a lot of people don't want to really recognize. Of just, I want to hurt somebody because it's going to affect them, and you could basically offload pain to somebody else and not deal with any of the consequences. So.
Yeah, I was so like when you said something, and then you kind of did the adjustment that I was going to do too, which was that it's not even. Oh God, I lost it. I don't remember what it was. It happens. I'm getting old, forgetting stuff.
Yeah.
But I think some people. Oh, that's what it was. It was not necessarily like hurting someone just because you have a reason for it, like to get back at them, or because they slighted you, or because of anything. Like people are doing it just to do it, like just because it's that learned behavior. Like I don't understand why I'm being a jerk on the internet, but I see other people being a jerk on the internet, so I'm being a jerk on the internet because it's fun. And honestly, like there is a like normal endorphin response that goes along with being a jerk to someone and seeing that you've hurt a person.
Yeah.
Getting that response, right? There is a natural response in our body that happens. It's not necessarily a good thing. There are reasons it was a good thing once upon a time, but it's not today. And we have to unlearn that behavior and find that you can get much better benefits and feel a hell of a lot better if you do other behaviors that actually produce much better responses. So like it's all chemical, right? It's all chemical and biological on some level. And all of those actions and behaviors tie to those things. And with enough experience and enough like intentional effort at thinking about it, which is again hard sometimes, you'll find that those positive actions, those times that you did good things and helped people or were nice to someone when you didn't have to be, produces a hell of a lot better feeling than that little bit of a spike you get from being an asshole. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna crack this.
Yeah, go ahead. It's like I think that what most people don't really seem to understand. So I'll talk about this from my perspective because I'm an atheist. So I don't believe in like an afterlife or gods or whatever. So for me, when I think about like immortality, for me, the only way that I can possibly attain immortality is through passing my my knowledge and wisdom to my kids and the people that know me that are around me. And there's no way I'm gonna leave any sort of like real legacy as an asshole. Like if I'm a kind person and I help people, that's a way better route to take. I'm sorry, you could be an asshole like on like the Hitler level, and yeah, you got a legacy, I guess, but that's a pretty terrible legacy, right? But if you're just like a general asshole, nobody's gonna remember you. Nobody's gonna show up to your funeral. Nobody's gonna remember any. Because you have no positive things that somebody could possibly like absorb and then try to emulate. But if you're kind and you take the time to really think about things and you pass down traits like that to your kids and those around you, that's a way that you can be, pseudo immortal because those traits can go way past you being alive. And that took me a while to like really kind of figure out.
I really like that you used the word legacy too, because that's one of the things I talk about is that's the only thing that you control, right? Is yourself. It's your the only actions, the only behaviors, the only attitudes, the only things that you can possibly control ever is your own. I can't control my children. I can't control my spouse. I can't control my friends, right? I can't control anybody listen to this. I can control my own actions. And those then influence those people's decisions. And what I can control is my own legacy, like what's known about me and what carries on afterwards. And I bet, this ties it to our topic too, that you think about that more as you get older too. You're like, what am I leaving behind, right? So, and I think we're not, like you said, we're not old, but we're at a point where we really need to consider how we go on our trajectory from here so that legacy is something that we are working towards, because it takes time to build those kinds of things and you have to plan ahead for it. It's not something that, tomorrow I'm going to make sure my legacy is taken care of. This is like a thing that takes long, consistent, slow, progress. It's building, it's the making of the Grand Canyon. That's not something that happens, in a day. It takes long years to make happen. It takes erosion and, it takes really working at it. So,
yeah, it really does take. It takes time, and this is the reason why I want to have this podcast. I probably should have said in the beginning of the podcast because that made it kind of, I guess, more important. But whatever, you get it sort of in the middle. Is that I literally never expected to live this long, and I'm only 41 years old. All right, I never expected to live this long. Having kids, I never thought about having kids. Never thought about life after the Marine Corps and like a long distance sort of deal. never thought about getting to this age. And there's a bunch of reasons why, but one of the probably one of the more important reasons that legacy and stuff like that comes up to me right now at like 41 is, even though I didn't expect to live this long, my dad and my uncle, like, they both died at like 55. So for me, I'm already like near the end. Like, in my mind, even though I know it's probably not going to happen, but it's like, am I going to make it past that? You know? And I had like my midlife crisis in my fucking 20s. It's just like, and it was pretty serious. And I'm just like, now I'm just trying to figure stuff out. Like, I'm doing pretty well, you know? But I just didn't think about these sorts of things. Like, as I was younger, I didn't think about like really understanding like what my kids might have needed as they're growing up. And now that I have an adult, you know, daughter and a, you know, 4-year-old, it's like I have to literally like change the way that I'm raising my, you know, my 4-year-old, because I've learned a lot from my 18-year-old. And I think that's what a lot of kids don't understand. So if you're, you know, if you're a younger person and you listen to this podcast, your parents are learning too how to be a parent as they're raising you.
Always.
So, yeah. So if you ever wonder like, oh, well, why does, you know, my younger sibling get treated better than me? Well, because your parents probably fucking learned. And guess what? They're probably treating you better too, you know, now than they were then. Because, you know, very few people actually plan on having kids. If your parents had you in their early 20s, you probably were not planned. So that's just a fact. You probably weren't. Yeah.
Or before you were 20.
Yeah. It's just one of those things.
And so just to clarify a couple of things too. So better does not mean nicer.
No.
Sometimes we learn as parents, we're like, hey, you kind of need to hold them to this standard and be a little bit firm at certain points. And sometimes that isn't something you realize until your child is old enough to go, why did this change? Why are you now acting this way? Because I clearly screwed this up because you're acting a certain way. So I need to change my behavior in order to hopefully help with yours and help you learn a lesson. We're trying to teach them. But yeah, we definitely understand better now. I think that we're constantly learning. We definitely do things different. We have 8 years only. So your gap's bigger than ours. We have 8 years between Logan and Addison. And even that is, it's like, a lot of it is like having two only children. It's just definitely a difference because we grew a lot in that 8 years and understood a lot better. And by the time she got to a certain age, then it was 10 years or 12 years or however many with him. We're like, okay, we need to do this now in order to get ahead of these behaviors we're seeing, because that's probably due to these things we did back then. So yeah, you definitely learn.
Yeah, I think that's like something that I think kids need to know, and I think parents need to speak up more about it. It's just like, hey, just as you're learning, as you're growing up with us, like, we're learning from you too, and parents make mistakes, like we do. So and we learn from them, and that's I think that's one of the main reasons why the younger siblings. I was the youngest out of my siblings, and I still had a difficult childhood, but it wasn't definitely my siblings had it worse. Like certain aspects were definitely worse, but at the same time, like as a parent now that obviously I said that like we're learning, like it's difficult for me now to put a lot of faults on my parents because they had some like how do I put it in like I'll put it in computer terms, they had kind of shitty code. So if you're brought up in like in the South and you're used to getting your ass kicked by your parents, then I mean, what are you gonna do?
You think that's how you raise your kids?
Yeah. So I mean, that's what happened with us. So me and my brother, we tried to, probably my sister too, like breaking the cycle of like doing that, and even then, it's like it's so difficult to parent kids without using like physical. What's the best word for this? But like basically like beating your kids, like just like not physically. I'm trying to think of a word.
Especially if that was your learned behavior, right?
Yeah,
so that was what you knew as that's how I learned it,
Yeah.
and it worked. I learned it, so that must be the method for doing so. Because it's same, right? So raised by Southern family, Southern parents who were raised by Southern parents, right? So,
Yeah.
so I definitely got that. But I wonder if this is a generational thing for us, right? Because same for Cindy, same for me. Both had it pretty rough as far as physical stuff goes, and for us, instead of for earlier generations, our parents and probably their parents, it didn't become the cycle. It became that act was enough to make you go, this is not the way I would want to be treated, because I know there's a better way to do this. How did that happen with with our generation? Being to the point where that method turned into the need to feel like you could break the cycle. It's just interesting because for most people, they'll tell you psychologically, it becomes that cycle of I'm just going to do the same thing that happened to me. It makes me wonder, because I've heard it from many of my friends who are parents and are our age, that they felt the same way. And it's now this is enough times that this is the time that was the final for me to go, this has got to be a trend for us,
I think
our age group.
I have a theory. I just thought about it. So did you grow up in a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset?
Number one, scarcity.
And everybody that you're thinking of right now that had to deal with physical abuse growing up, were they scarcity or abundance?
Still mostly scarcity. Some had some abundance, but usually no, mostly scarcity.
I think that might be one of the key factors is if you don't have the cycles of really understanding how to understand your kids and understand their need. No, I'm not saying that we went without needs. Obviously our needs were met.
Right. Yeah.
But if you don't have the cycles to really take a step back, and be hey, what does my kid actually need right now? And do I need to use physical means to get them to do what I want them to do? Because at least for me, I understood with my my oldest kid, is that if you spank them or whatever, whatever you want them to do, they'll do immediately. So the consequences there is just as a parent, they're doing what I want them to do. It's great. But you're not thinking of the long-term effects of what that does to them, and you're also not understanding why they're doing what they're doing, their actual behavior of what they're doing. So it's way easier to use physical force to force your kids to do what you want them to do, rather than talking to them and understanding their needs, because you need the time and mental resources to do that, and if you don't have it, what other methods do you have? Do you just let them run the streets? Because that's what some parents do,
And to put credit there now too, right? So I don't have close relationships with my parents very much. I talked to my mom. My dad passed not too long ago, and I never really knew him very well. So, but to put some credit in their court, then I know what was being done between my mom and my grandparents was they didn't have the cycles like we talked about. They were working to make sure that we were all provided for, but that work on their part, leaving them with no cycles to spend time on the discipline in a positive way, right? Bought us the cycles to think about how would I want to be treated if I was dealing with the same problem, right? Because I'm now not dealing with scarcity. I'm not having to go to work or whatever. I'm not having to do those things. I had enough time to think through those, which they maybe didn't at that time, which led us towards this point. Weird chain of events thing I was thinking it through is there should be some credit there for them to where they gave us enough leeway to say, same thing, even where we are is, for me, one of my goals is to make sure that my kids can go a step further, right? So go beyond, made it okay to be very successful. So there's some level of credit that needs to be there for her to say, again, not the way I want to do it, but you gave me the space to say, this is how I want to do it, right? To think even through this enough to get to that point where I can say I'm not doing the same thing, and I'm going to think my way through a better way to do this.
Yeah, and I think that's I like that. Like that we can take the time and like really think about things, and but at the same time, like people that are, in our same age group, like I see them talking about like this new generation is so soft, but it's just like, I mean, yes and no. First of all, I don't necessarily think that every generation needs to be hard as fuck. Like I don't. Like I think the point of, really advancing a society is to stop needing to be hard as fuck. You know, like we shouldn't feel the need to just keep being so aggressive towards people as time goes on. We should be kinder to people. But I think that we have this weird mindset, especially in America, where it's just like, no, we need to be, the best, and like just I'm like, really? I mean, it's not helping us. Like we're seeing the effects of it right now. We have the highest suicide rates, like probably in the world in America right now. We have mass shootings all the time. We have people that are fucking crazy depressed, and we just keep pushing this mindset of like we're, being so hard on things. It's like I don't think that's advancing our society like at all. And you can't call the younger generation weak when you raise them. You raise them.
That's where I thought you were going to go at first. I love that you kind of went a different way, and you got me at the end.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind as you brought up the talking about the younger generation being so weak. It's like you raised them.
Yeah.
So if that was your goal, then you failed at it. Like whatever you thought you were doing, which you probably didn't think about,
no,
did not get them where you wanted them to be. And like you said, can we even define what that means today? Like, it's not the same as it was in the 30s, and it shouldn't be the same as it was in the 60s. Those should be being defined by each generation. What does being resilient and being tough? And again, like that exact word is used frequently. It's like they're soft and not hard, right? Those two specific things, and like those don't really mean anything in reality, like about how people behave. Are you talking about like how physically hard my abs are? Like I don't. That's a real thing, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about your resiliency and like your ability to persevere and do these other things. And if we're talking about kids who have been raised being constantly picked on online and like constantly berated online, and they've made their way through that and they've become a functional adult, they're probably a hell of a lot more resilient than you are. You just don't understand that resiliency because it's different than your resiliency.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm dealing with it too as someone this age, and they say those things about like every Marine generation does, that this new generation is soft and like they're not tough enough. I'm like, they're just tough in different ways. They are different than us and are more capable than us in other ways. And I love it when I hear, like I did today, like a colonel say stuff like that. Like, no, these young Marines are amazing, and everything that you want them to do, they can do. You just need to give them the space to do so and let them be successful. And he's like coaching lieutenants. I was like, thank you. Thank you. It's finally great to hear that from someone, I was trying to look that up to be able to tell you for sure, but I'm gonna keep looking when I go to the next.
I'll tell you a Marine Corps story. So I used to think the same thing about like the Marine Corps, like right when I got out, because one of the reasons why I got out was obviously I had like a really bad leader. He was terrible, and then I saw like the new generation of Marines that were coming in, and most of them I didn't like, only because they lacked common sense is the main thing. And like one of the guys that actually had some common sense, I made sure that he got the fuck out of the unit as fast as possible. Because I was like, the unit that you're in, man, like right now, it's not great. The guy's last name was Aquino, and I made sure that he hopped in the MU as fast as possible. So I'm like, listen, you're a guy who seems to understand like basic shit, and you're not out there doing dumb shit. Because like there was this new guy, I forget his name, doesn't even matter, but I was a corporal. And he got a brand, and he ran up to me. He's like, "Look, Corporal Barker, look at this brand." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you showing me right now? Why are you showing me this? Like, you can't do this. Like, and you're so dumb that you understand you didn't pay attention to any of the UCMJ at all? Like, you can't get a brand, dumbass. Now I have to tell somebody. Like, I have no
Yeah.
choice.
It was funny because of that rule. This is like, again, another throwback kind of story. Because of the rule of not being able to be branded, right? You can't do any branding. You can't do any of that stuff. I had a guy in my boot camp platoon who got the brand before he joined. So that way, technically, he wasn't breaking the rules.
Yeah.
So he has USMC branded in his shoulder
Jesus Christ.
at boot camp. You're like, you are not a freaking Marine. And the drill
Yeah,
instructors just ate this dude up. I mean, he was a big football player. Like, he was going to 100% make it. Like, you knew this guy was going to be a great Marine. But, like, that's not a good start.
No.
So he definitely succeeded, and I don't know where he is today, but, like, he had a hard time at boot camp because they just become – so they, in traditional drill instructor fashion, made him the guide to begin with. Like, hey, you are in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
There you go.
Like,
You're a Marine.
why are these going on? Well, you will be in trouble for everything, too.
Yeah.
So if you can't be smart, you're going to be strong. The way drill instructors, too. So.
Yeah. I used to one of the ridiculous things that I said when I was a younger parent was that my kid's either going to be dumb or strong. And I'm just like, thinking back on that's fucking cringe. That's so fucking cringe. Like, why would you want your kid to be dumb or strong? Like, can't they be both or just be their own fucking person? You know, it's like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, we do not even make top 10 for suicide rates now globally.
okay, not even top 10. But
No.
the rates are definitely going up, though. Like, it's been up for a while.
Yeah, so let's see, average, so suicide rate is 16.1. Is that a percentage? That doesn't make sense. But, like, the highest, and we can go down the top couple. So Lesotho has, like, the worst with 72.4 on average per year.
I actually don't even know what the fuck that is.
No, this is 10 countries' highest suicide rate. So it's number of suicides per 100,000 people.
Okay.
So for every 100,000 people, annually, 72.4 people commit suicide in Lesotho. It's a lot. It's a huge number. Surprising on this top list, number 4 is South Korea, which it's kind of surprising.
It's not,
28.6. And then Russia's up there, number 9,
wow.
25.1. And then South Africa, also kind of surprising, 23.5.
Wow.
Yeah, we do not make top 10. So the only Western, and they say Western European nation with an exceptionally high suicide rate is Belgium. Kind of surprising. But ranks as number 11 with 18.3 per 100,000. But it says Belgium also has some of the most liberal laws on doctor-assisted suicide. So then that potentially affects those numbers because those would still count as suicides, but it's state controlled and doctor led and managing healthcare part for that country. That's the way they're managing it as a healthcare thing. So that is affecting their numbers, obviously.
Sorry, you're right. Obviously you're right because you say the statistics, but it was the actual when I'm talking about the rising suicide rates in America. Suicide is now the 10th leading cause of death in America, which it didn't used to be anywhere near that. So, which is it's kind of insane. Because if you go back through the years, it wasn't anywhere near 10th.
Okay, so you're talking about rate of increase.
Yeah, it's ramping up significantly.
Well, I wonder how much of that, again, something close for us is how much of that is tied to 20 years plus, 20, I guess. So 20 years, at war, constantly. A constant cycle of people going to a very violent and stressful and hard-pressed area, and then being a very hard-hit community within the country for suicides. I know that there's some statistic numbers out there that are usually used, and a lot of it's not accurate campaign numbers things, but to create awareness. I don't care that the 22, that thing's not an accurate statistic, but it doesn't change the fact that it's bad, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely needs attention, and so to make it a marketing campaign, I don't care. Yeah, cool, got it. I'm all for accuracy, but that doesn't reduce the legitimacy of the idea that we need to be talking about it, and we should be concerned, and we should try to do something about it.
Well, America has a very strenuous relationship with mental health. Like, we just don't think it's a thing. You know, like, if you look at like the Ronald Reagan era when he just decided to shut down a whole bunch of mental health facilities across the U.S. And then we saw homelessness spikes. We saw people getting thrown in prison spikes. It's insane that we don't put enough stock in mental health. And it goes back to like what we talked about in the very beginning with Simone Biles. Like, people don't care about her mental health like at all. And like Naomi Osaka is another person who's a professional athlete. She had mental health issues. She pulled out, and people got mad at her for that. I'm like, can you imagine being mad at somebody because they literally, like, in their mental state, like they can't do it? Why would you want to force somebody to do something that they did not want to do? Like, really think about that. Like, it's none of your fucking business.
The way you just said that, right? So, forcing someone to do something they don't want to do. Immediately, like, my brain went towards rape, right? So this is it's like a completely different subject, and I'm not reducing the impact of that on a person's life, but if we frame it under that thought process and like take a step to a different direction and say, to do that to someone, to say despite your mental state, to say despite whatever else is going on that makes you not feel like you're capable of doing this right now, I don't care, do it anyways, and forcing them through whatever coercive methods you have available to you to do so, it's not unlike it. Like, I'm not saying it compares and it has the same physical impact on you, but it's that same concept in a not physical thing. So to go to where we don't seem to understand mental health issues, right, in America, because we just can't see it, so therefore it doesn't exist. It's similar to that same thing. Like, that is a physical act, which sometimes is frequently legitimized or under legitimized, but not legit. Yeah, like, not treated as important as it should be. Is what I'm trying to say. I can't think of the right word right now. But like, it's similar, right? It's where you say like, this is despite your resistance to what is going on and your inability to do so, I'm going to make you do it through whatever means that person has available. It's pretty like, if my brain immediately went there, I was like, I know this doesn't seem, I know it's not the same thing, but it was a connection I just kind of made when you said it that way. I was like, whoa.
Oh, well, I think a lot of people, like me included, like kind of years ago, of like the issue with like rape in America. I remember, so let me just, I'm probably going to make some people mad. I don't give a fuck, first of all, if I made you mad about that statement. But there is an issue with rape in America, even in the armed forces especially. The first time, if you don't believe me, if y'all are, so I know we're going to have a lot of armed forces listeners
Sure.
to this podcast. First time I went to Iraq as a contractor. I went there, and I went to the VBC, which is the Victory Base Complex. And there were signs everywhere about for females to walk with other people at night because of rape. And I looked at that, I was fucking horrified. I was like, this is the U.S. military. Like, why are people worried about rape in the U.S. military? And then you see like all these stories coming out, like, I forget the woman's name. God damn, it was like a whole like rape crazy thing. I think she was of Mexican descent. You know what I'm talking about? She was in the army, and she ended up getting raped and killed. And
in Texas.
Yeah, and then it was like a whole thing that came out about. I was just like,
I can't remember the whole story, and no, I don't remember the name, and I feel terrible for not.
No, it's an issue. Like, it's literally an issue that I did not know existed in the military. Probably because I'm a fucking dude. All right, I'm not worried about getting raped, like, at all. But I thought that we thought of, I thought we're all brothers and sisters, and meanwhile, we have pieces of shit raping women in the military. And it's like kind of swept under the rug, and it's been. If you follow that story, I forget the woman's name. If you're looking it up, please help me. But it's swept under the rug, like on multiple layers. It wasn't just like her commanding officer. It was like went way up the chain. Like they ignored her pleas of being sexually assaulted, and she ends up getting killed. And she is not the only story that's out there. And people just think that, oh, well, whatever. It doesn't happen that often. But what if that's your daughter, man? Or your
Right.
mom? Or your sister? It's like, come on.
So I was trying to, while we talked through this, so we could put it in perspective for us too, the percentage of specific populations, right, that deal with the rape. And we are off topic, and we'll get back to age here in a second.
Yeah.
But age kind of matters here, as I'm about to go into it too. That the first stat I found, which is not the one I was looking for, is that like this thing reports the fact that there's a significantly higher percentage over the years from 2006 to 2018, like occurring, but it's attributed to a much higher rate of reporting, like accepting that reporting is okay and understanding and knowledge about reporting processes and making sure that reports happen, not necessarily that more were happening, just that more were being reported, right?
Yeah.
Which just tells you that means that all those numbers from before that probably were crap, right? That's all it says. And they're probably still not good. But that definitely it's almost always someone being assaulted by someone who is older than them, is their senior either in rank or in authority. And that's where I think we can kind of, not intentionally trying to just get off this topic, because it is one that we can absolutely talk about. But since we are trying to stick to age today, it seems like that should be something that wouldn't happen, right? That you would have, if we go back to that first concept we went through, which is like, as you get older, you should become more wise and more understanding and more able to, have empathy about someone else's perspective and think about it and understand what's going on with them. That would happen less often, but it seems in most cases it's the other way around, where it's almost always someone taking advantage of someone younger than them.
Yeah, and it's a shame. So I will say her name. I found her. Vanessa Gillian. That's her name. And
Jillian.
Is it Jillian? Well,
yeah. Yeah. Well, as soon as you said Vanessa, I remembered what it was. It's like,
yeah.
I was like, I couldn't pull that out for some reason.
Yeah, and she had reported, she was 20 years old, and she had reported sexual harassment way before she was murdered. So, yeah, it's an issue that I think that, I think if you're in the military, it particularly bothers me when it's members of the military. I mean, don't get me wrong, rape in general is fucking wrong. But when you are swearing an oath, and we're supposed to be the heroes, and our heroes are raping and killing our own service members, it's like, I mean, come on. Like, I put people in the military on a different standard than civilians. That's just the way it's always going to be for me.
Yeah.
And they definitely failed that standard. It's fucked up. Anyway.
So we haven't had a death penalty conversation, but like, I have no problem. I have like, I don't know. As long as it's like pretty like concrete and you can prove that kind of thing. If this is for sure the behavior, I have no problem just getting rid of that person.
I understand.
I just don't want that person in my society, and holding on to them and keeping them alive, and they're not going to respawn. These aren't travelers, right? So
yeah. No, I totally. I understand your perspective. I totally understand your perspective on the death penalty, but I used to be on the same route. Like, yeah, just fuck them, kill them. Like, for me, guillotine. I mean, but the problem with me is that I don't feel that now that I've had a lot of time to think about it, that people that are on death row and that are going to get hit with the death penalty, I don't think that they've done their, how do I put it? I feel like they're not.
So,
really, go ahead.
I'm saying I think I can bail you if you're still struggling to forget to get there. So I say that, right? And for me, the problem is that the more aware you are of the way the system actually works right now, is that due diligence isn't there to prove that person deserves or even did the thing we think deserves that action, right? Well, I think that there is things we can say, if for sure there is a clear line that it happened, that deserves it, but we can't get past this line most of the time where we say, I know for a fact that this person absolutely deserves this death penalty. I think that's kind of where you were going.
No, actually. That's good. I mean, that's definitely important, though, right? Because you definitely need to know if somebody actually did it, and you need like an actual like all approved. Because there's definitely people that have been on death row that have been killed that didn't do it. Okay, so that aspect is pretty messed up. But what I was going to say is that I think that in America with our justice system is that I don't feel like somebody that is put on, that's going to be killed by the state or on federal level or whatever. I don't think that they've done enough to really pay back their debt to the victims and the victim's family.
I remember we did talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't know. I didn't pick up that's where you were going. Sorry.
Yeah, that's my issue. Is like just think about it just in general. Somebody murdered somebody. They definitely did it. What happens to the person that murdered somebody? They throw them in jail, and if they're in a state that still has a death penalty, they're put on death row for multiple years. They're separated from the victims. Obviously the victim's fucking dead, but the victim's family. There's really no. Where is their restitution for the victim's family? Like how? Why is there no possibility for them to possibly? God damn, there's a better word for this.
Work it back, pay it back, to
really fix things. But if you just kill them, there's no possibility for them to ever fix anything, and it removes the responsibility of the person that did the actual, murderous act to like do anything. Like just like, okay, well you're gonna die, but the victim's family, yeah, the person's gonna die, but did the person even feel bad about it? You know what I mean? Did they what have they done to make to improve upon their life? I'm not saying that every single time it seems to happen, because obviously there's some families, victims' families that are never gonna want to even see the person or want anything from them. But there are people that do need something like that. And I'm saying that needs to be an option for them to actually at least heal part of the damage that they did. And it's easy to just get thrown in. I'm not saying it's an easier route just to get fucking thrown in jail and get killed by the state than actually try to heal the damage that you did. Because right now there's literally no possibility for somebody that murdered somebody to really heal the damage that they did.
Yeah. And I get that. So, and you mentioned it, right? So that for some, the best cathartic thing would be to be there and see that person also die, right? That could be what that family needs, that closure, that feeling that this is taken care of, it's all said and done. And it's over, right? So some people, they just want this done. But I think you're right. So some people would want to see more done. And I don't know what that option looks like. So is it they help them paint their house, build a house? Are they doing the labor stuff that they're doing now? Are they cleaning up highways? That's how does that help that person personally, directly?
I know. It's a very complicated issue, and if somebody heard what I said, and you're like, oh, Kr0nus, you're totally wrong. Okay, that's fine. You can think I'm totally wrong, and I'm totally willing to admit that I could be entirely wrong, but at the same time, I think that there could be a better solution to criminal justice, especially when it comes to the death penalty. Especially knowing that there's been multiple people that have been killed by the state that didn't do it, and we know this. We know this. What's the value of a human life? So I'll put that out first, and then second of all is why isn't the person that murdered somebody doing actually trying to fix the harm that they did? We don't even allow that to happen. It should at least be an option in my mind. If you don't agree with me, it's fine. I get it. It's fine. Anyway, that was kind of brutal, but yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. So I do think that's a whole other thing. Something we can talk about maybe later if it's something someone wants to talk about. Have you seen the movie The Life of David Gale?
I have not.
So it's a movie about the death penalty. It's got Kevin Spacey in it. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
It down.
So I will not talk about it because it's really good. I'll say, remember we talked about there was really good ones and then completely fell off and totally died. It's got good era M. Night Shyamalan twist level stuff in it. So it's really, really interesting. And it's one of those ones that talked about how this is clearly not an easy topic. So there are only 24 states that have the death penalty left. 23 have no death penalty at all, and then right now 3 states have a governor-imposed moratorium. Like, we're not doing it right now, but it's still technically on the books, kind of thing. Shocking to me was the fact that I could have sworn Washington State, where I vote, still had the death penalty, and was the only state left that still used hanging as the primary means for like death penalty.
Yeah, it's fun. Like the way that we actually kill people. Like the insane thing to me is that people were trying to bring back like the gas chamber. What? Let me give you the historical context of when we use the gas chamber. When we use the gas chamber, it literally goes back to Nazi times. That's how we killed not how we. I'm sorry. That's how the Nazis killed the Jews. It's the same fucking gas. And so I see people like, "Oh yeah, bring them back." Are you fucking serious? Like, do you not understand the historical context?
Groups of people. It's still not.
It's so dumb. Why are you so dumb?
So the reason I remember this, and the reason I thought Washington still did and still had hanging, was that there's this story I read about, and so it must have been, a long time ago, because I still remember this story from long ago, that there was a guy in prison on death row that was going to be, killed through the death penalty, and Washington used hanging. So knowing that there's a very specific mathematical calculation to like your height and your body weight and how long the rope needs to be and how high the platform is to make sure that as soon as you fall and your neck breaks and blah, blah, right? There's math to it. So he figured out if he weighed a certain amount, it would rip his head off no matter what the length of the thing was, which would make it cruel and unusual punishment, so he couldn't be hung. So he starts like ballooning up and gaining weight. Like he just put on weight. So he's like, wow. You can't kill me because I weigh too much.
That's fucking morbid.
So then they had to like half rat him, like they did the guys who like had to figure out how to like get him to lose weight.
Wow. Yeah,
that's a crazy story. But he figured out the system. He's like, if you can figure that kind of trigonometry out, man, how come you can't be a good member of society? What the heck's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, I mean, there's honestly as far as I am concerned, if you're gonna kill somebody, the most humane way would be the guillotine. It's the most humane way because there is some pain involved, but you can't fuck it up. Like your head is removed, you might be in some pain for maybe 15 seconds, maybe, but yeah, but we won't do that in America. But also, I'm anti-death penalty, so yeah. But that's sort of over the past few years where I became anti-death penalty. But I understand the arguments for the death penalty. Like I get it.
Better than the system of eternal imprisonment.
Yeah, and like putting people in solitary for like a long ass time, and just like treating them like trash, like and convict leasing, which we still do. Making people like we have slaves in America today. Yeah. We have more people enslaved today than we had slaves back when there were actually real quote unquote slaves. Obviously, those are real slaves, but the people that are in prison are slaves as well. So I can break that down to you in a whole bunch of different ways. If you want me to talk about it, I could do it on another podcast.
Let's say we need to put a pin in that one because we will go down that one. I think we have to some extent
a little bit
prior to that, and I think both times have said this needs to be its own subject.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
that is a huge topic.
You know what's awesome though is that if you go back to season 1 when I talked about racism. And you watched Last Week Tonight talking about what was the topic when he's talking about redlining? I literally went over this almost not word for word, but the very same topics that he talked about on that podcast.
Yeah, last week's one was like housing, right? It was I think it was
housing.
He called it housing.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is literally we just talked about this. So if you're watching this episode, it should be like our last episode, I think, is the one where we talk about housing. So a week prior to recording this episode, so pretty much a couple days after we did that one,
I thought it was season 1, but okay, apparently it was this season. But yeah, it was actually like about just racism, and it had to do with housing.
Yeah, we started talking about it like last time we recorded, and it was crazy. But we were kind of all over because it was education. Technically, was the topic, but then we went into housing because it affects it.
Yeah, and
so
about it, yeah.
And then literally just days later, his came out. I was like, wow, this is the same stuff we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the right topics then.
Yeah,
I like his.
Even had reference the same book, Color of Law. It's a great book.
I will tell you what, I'm happy that Trump is out of office for the reason that it means John Oliver does not have to do a show about Trump every single week.
Yeah. But he had
because it got old. It got old. Like hearing them cry about it every week. Like, can we talk about cool, like small stuff, like that is supposed to be what your show's about, like that no one else cares about? Like that's what I loved that show for, was like weirdly detailed reports on like crazy small like topics within the government that nobody even thinks about. Did you see the one on like special districts?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, this is the crazy detailed level stuff that they need. And all they did was talk about the president for a year. I'm like, oh God, please just move on to something else.
Yeah, it's hard. Like obviously there's ratings, but it's hard when like the same person's doing like fucked up shit every goddamn week.
Yeah, I just feel like with that show, like that was my safe space, you know?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Like I could come to you for the stupid little nerdy level politics stuff that I get into, and I avoid the Fox and I avoid the MSNBC.
The CNNs, yeah.
All they do is toe this party line news, and I'm like, I expected you to do better, John. I expected you to do better. But
yeah,
I get it. Like you said, ratings, and you can't. And again, he probably was where we were. Like at certain points, you're like, I'm just so frustrated with what's going on. I can't talk about anything else.
Yeah.
And the same things he has his things that he comes back to, like we do, and that's probably what it was. It's like every week they're trying to figure out what to talk about. Like I can't help but want to talk about this right now.
Yeah, it's hard not to talk about a major subject, you know, when, and it keeps happening. It's like honestly, I think that Trump was like the gift that kept on giving for like liberal media. Because just like, this is easy. You don't get to write it. Like, look how bad this guy's fucking up. Like,
I almost wonder, like, political cartoonists. Like, I wonder if anywhere during that time, all they did was publish the exact same cartoon from last week. And no one even noticed.
Yeah, just a new bubble. All right.
Same exact cartoon.
So the last thing that I think we're going to talk about, because this might take a little bit, I don't know. It'll take about 30 minutes for sure.
That was me. Sorry, something in the audio, I just totally destroyed it. What would you say?
Oh, I was going to say the last thing we're going to talk about, because it's going to affect both of us, because we are both athletes, and we're going to talk about being like an aging athlete. So I don't know how bad it affects you, because you're still an active Marine. I obviously am not, but I work out daily.
Yes.
And when you're aging as an athlete, it is it's fucking something else. It's something else.
They're definitely not the days where I drank until 4 a.m. and then went and ran a PFT and had like the best score I've ever had. That's not happening.
No.
It's like intentional. There's planned, and part of it. So last week you were like, hey, or you just said when we got started, and if you are part of Patreon, you can watch our full like pre-show stuff. But we talked about a little before we got started. It was like, last week, you're like, hey, appreciate you. I was like, you know how much I hurt last week? That was my response. I was like, dude, I'm hurting, so I'm good. So I went way too hard coming back from a month off on a Monday, and like, I literally felt like I might have torn something in like triceps and like shoulder connection to chest. And I just did like 100 push-ups in like 5 minutes. It's not insane, but like all body weight. Nothing extreme. Is just more than I should have done on my way back towards like trying to spin myself back up, and oh my God, it hurt so bad. I was like, oh, there's no getting out of this. I went for a little jog to try to loosen things up, get the joints and the muscles going. No. The next day I was like, it feels worse. I was like, oh, come on, that's supposed to help.
Yeah, no. It's so insane. Like, and this is another thing that people will tell you as you're older. If you're younger listening to this, listen to people that are older as athletes. Like, your body is not going to keep its shit together forever. I'm not falling apart by any means, but at the same time, my body takes what I consider to be fucking forever to heal. Like, I
Yeah.
did. I got back to doing a little bit of jujitsu, like a month ago. I got map under my foot. The map under my foot took 3 weeks to properly heal. 3 weeks to properly heal.
So nowhere near as badass sounding as while I was doing jujitsu, I got foot burn. So while walking around Disney, when we were on our vacation, like for some reason there's a seam on my casual shoes I had or whatever
Oh, no.
that like rubbed the shit out of one of my toes. I was like, oh my god. So I switched to sandals for the next couple of days to try to like just take the pressure off it, and that shit did not heal. The whole week we were there, and it's like a week later, I'm like, why is there still a blister like on my toe? And as Marines, right, we hike all the time. Blisters, whatever.
Yeah.
I get them, but like that, it did not go away. I was like, how is this does not math out? I don't understand how this is taking so long to get healed up.
Yeah,
It's a blister from Disney. Like that's not even a thing.
yeah, it's insane like how much your body is slowing down. And like we see it, like it's slowing. Obviously, I've lost like some of my hair. I got some grays now. You know, like I'm getting older. Like when I see like my hair like starting to come out and like my grays, it's like my body is just like, you know, there are more important things than your hair and your hair color. Let's just try to stay alive. All right, how about that? And even then, it's like things take longer to get back together, and I'm just like, man, like it's like legit. But what's crazy? Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I will say I'm kind of lucky in the hair department. So, like, it hasn't started really falling out. So Cindy likes to joke and say that like you can tell the windows peak sections. She's like, oh, they're getting further back. I'm like, no, they've always been that way. I just have kind of like this larger thing. You can go back and look at 19-year-old pictures of me, and it still has the same hair thing. But the gray is mostly coming in like right here, which kind of gives you the like distinguished look. And she absolutely adores it. Like she's like, oh, that's so good. She loves it so much. I'm like, hey, perfect. So I'm just winning with the getting old with the hair color thing and the hairs.
My girlfriend
At
says
least
the same thing, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, okay. But also,
who else? Who the fuck else do I care about what their opinion is?
Yeah.
Nobody.
I mean, at the same time, though. Well, at the same time, to be fair, with my girlfriend K-Mac, she kept dyeing her hair because she had gray hair. I'm just like, why do you keep dyeing your hair? Like, just look the age that you are. Like, stop dyeing your hair. You don't need to dye your hair. If you're doing it for you, okay, I guess, but don't do it for me. If you're getting grays, I don't give a fuck. And so she just, like, over the last year, she stopped dyeing her hair, obviously because of COVID. And then when she finally got to go back to her hairdresser, she didn't do hair dye again. And I was like, good, because now you look your actual age. You know, and it's okay to look your age. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Cindy does dye it, but she dyes her hair because that's where she wants her hair to be. I'm like, I don't care. The same as you. Like, if that's something you're enjoying and that makes you feel more confident and makes you feel better, then do you.
Yeah.
But don't do that for me.
Exactly. I'm the same way. I'm like, I don't care. Like, you still look like you. So, you know.
You go, just baby.
Yeah, so yeah, being an aging athlete is it's weird because I think that most people, they never were an athlete, first of all, to begin with. And so they don't understand like the degradation of your body. So most people, they live kind of a sedentary lifestyle, and so they never were like,
Changes.
yeah, they were not like at a high level of doing like really anything physical. But once you are at that level, and then you start trying to like really keep up that level, like it becomes difficult to accept that, you know, you're not in your 20s anymore.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you see the line, like, in a quote from Tom Brady, like on retirement or whatever, that he was excited to eat a tomato? Because like in the 20 something plus years or whatever that he's been playing football, he has never once eaten a tomato because that's just like so much sugar and they're so bad for you physically, and it makes it so much harder to recover and all these other things. He's like kind of excited to have some pizza and like eat a tomato and like do these other things that I haven't done, because especially like at the age he's getting, like to maintain that peak physical performance like he has, he's like, it is so hard, and it got so much harder. It's only going to get harder and harder for him. But I was like, it's very interesting. It's just like, he's like, there's little things. It's little things you don't realize when you're not performing, not really focused on diet and exercise, that as you get older, you're like, man, it's going to be nice to, like, for him at least, kind of like let it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Get the foot off the gas just a little bit for him. So it's kind of cool.
I think that's one of the things that most people just they don't get it. Just like they're living their sedentary lifestyle. They're just like, oh well, I'm good. But then once if you have an emergency, you have to run. Like then you get it. Yeah. Like.
Did you have any like actual injuries or anything when you were younger that you can feel now?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I tore my this pec away from my shoulder when I was in Iraq from benching, and so now when I'm doing like yoga and I'm doing like certain like rolls and shit, like I can feel like the separation and the pop out of the socket, and it comes back in. It's not a really huge deal, and then my ankles are fucked. So I broke my tibia off into my ankle when I was in Iraq, and they didn't want to X-ray it. They told me I was fine. So a week later, I was back on back on the elliptical. And yeah, that ankle's like some days like something gets stuck in the bones in my ankle, and it's painful like all day,
And eventually it'll clip. You're like, oh.
Yeah, then it feels good, And there's a couple other things, but I'm working on it, I'm working on like getting it better.
What's interesting is like anybody who's never had an injury like that, where it can get to this point where like it's gonna stay at this pain level and then can come out of it.
Yeah.
Has no idea how good that feels. Like that feeling of, oh, it just went back where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
My shoulder. So I've torn my shoulder twice. So getting a little bit physio. So it's the Acromeo clavicle tendon. So from your collarbone to your shoulder blade on the back, there's a tendon that goes between them to kind of like hold all that muscle and everything else together on your shoulder. So your collarbone and your back plate are like held together. So I've hit it enough times, like stretching it outward away from where it's supposed to be, that like I've torn that thing twice. And so there are still plenty of times I'll just be like, oh, hey, nope, that shoulder is not where it's supposed to be. It is doing some weird stuff. And it's like eventually, hopefully and it just kind of clicks back. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I can use my arm again, because everything feels wrong when it does that. And I just went yesterday. So I just went yesterday and got re-measured for insoles for my feet, because my feet, as Marines with 20 plus years or whatever, your feet are, no matter what, your feet are jacked. Like, what's really interesting is Enrique has tried like 3 times to go get them to give him custom insoles, and they keep just being like, you got plantar fasciitis, just stretch it. It's like, I have 23 years of service in the Army Corps. There's something else wrong with my feet. Let me go to a podiatrist. They still keep being Navy about it, and I'm like, just tell them. You can't, at this point, we've learned, you can't just go into medical and be like, hey, something's wrong. Can you tell me what it is? No, you tell them what it is. Like, my foot is messed up. I need to go see a professional, like someone who specializes in this thing. I'm not leaving this office until you give me a referral to that section. So he's going to hopefully do that next week. But yeah, I went and got fitted for my new insoles here, and I do not like the process. I got a little bit pampered in Japan, I guess, because in Okinawa, the Naval Hospital doesn't do it. The only place anywhere around is like a professional athlete support foot doctor guy down in Naha. So you have to go to that little shop, and it's like basement floor of someone's house that is turned into an office. And you walk in, and this guy has pictures of autographed professional athletes from basketball teams and golfers and like runners from all these Japanese teams hanging up all over the place, because everyone in the country goes to that guy in Naha. You're like, oh, geez. Okay, this guy's real. And he, like, you like run across some electronic pad, and he's like measuring everything and does all this crazy stuff, and then gets you very custom made insoles. And so I'm like, I'm gonna get some crappy Dr. Scholl's things out of these guys. This is what I'm gonna get. Like,
yeah, that's one of the things that, I don't know if you said on the podcast before, but you're probably gonna retire soon, right? So maybe, probably.
There was a thing the Colonel said today, and me and Enrique both looked over at each other and were like,
okay,
right?
Right.
Which was, whenever it stops being fun, stop. Right? So there are moments where we're both like, this is just too frustrating. Like, I can't get through the bullshit and actually get something done. But then most days are more like today, where I'm like, I guarantee at least 10 or 15 of those lieutenants had like a very aha moment today, at least 2 or 3 times, and are like way more aware of what they're going to do, and they're going to make really great Marines and make a much better Marine Corps. And I did that, right? Like I had that impact. I made sure that the future of the Marine Corps is going to be better. It's like, how much longer can I do that and still be energized and excited about it? And as long as that's still happening, whatever, I'll deal with the rest of the crap.
You've been inspired. That's good.
Yeah, you have to find those moments. Inspiration is on us to like recognize, right? So it's there. It exists around us. You just have to even like be aware enough to recognize it, and it's good.
That is good. I'm gonna spoil. Well, I'm gonna maybe make your day worse, I guess. But anyway, as a civilian, I got a fucking PPO. So when I have like an issue, I just go to like who the fuck I need to. Like, I remember, like, when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, my girlfriend was like, don't get cauliflower ear. I'm going to be angry if you get cauliflower ear. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to get cauliflower ear. And then I got fucking cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
And it was, like, blowing up. It was obnoxious to me. So I was like, all right, I got to get this fixed. So I go
it was like weighing your head down, cauliflower. You're like, I got to pick this out.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. Let's go to the doctor. Let's go to my normal doctor. Hey man, can you just drain my ear for me? Like it's fucking blowing up and it's painful. Just drain it. He's like, yeah, I could do that, but you should probably see a plastic surgeon. Like they'll do a better job. And I was like, okay. Well, do I need a referral? He's like, no, you don't need a referral. Just look in our directory, find a plastic surgeon. Like you'll be fine. And so yeah, like the next week I just went to a plastic surgeon, and they fixed my ear. And it's like I don't know which ear. I think it's this year? Yes, this year. This year we'll never get my left ear. We'll never get cauliflower ear ever again, because they went through and they numb my ear up. They fucking scraped the inside of my ear out, and then they took like 2 pads and then like sewed them together to like compress it all down. So I will never get cauliflower ear ever again on this ear.
Interesting. I mean, so it shows that it was such a good job though that you're like, I can't even remember which.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely my left ear. Like
you have to feel
yeah, because there's a little bit more cartilage, but you can't tell if you're looking at my ears. Like you can't tell which ear it is. Yeah.
Nope. I won't remember next week.
Yeah. The only way you can really tell is that there's 3 dots on this ear from like the sutures. That's about it.
That could happen for anything.
Yeah. The only thing that sucked though is that it was fucking crazy painful numbing it up, because it's already like full of like blood and inflamed, and so when they like injected the the anesthesia into my ear, it was just like it blew up even more. I was like, oh. After that though, it was fine.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm good with ear pain and stuff. I had lots of big piercings once upon a time. Stretched out. Yeah. Did 3 stretchings. I had my labret pierced. So that was.
You were edgy.
I had other things pierced.
Oh, this guy. It's getting personal.
Yeah. It was. I did them myself.
Oh, Jesus. That's fucking... I'm
impressed.
Edgy. Yeah, I'm actually impressed. Like, I wouldn't do that myself.
I wouldn't do it again, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
not at this age.
Yeah, no.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
So I do think about things like that too. Like, so I was pretty interested in portraying this like wild child concept. I did it for a couple of reasons. One, I'm very intellectual, very like, I like to know a lot about everything. I felt like, again, even at 16, 17, 18 years old, in those things I was interested in, I knew a lot about it, right? I was very invested, and I researched, and I was personable, and I cared about people, and I tried to be nice. So then I felt like it was a fun thing to do, to not look like that person.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm going to have red hair, like, and wear it in a mohawk, and have piercings, and like dress like a skater or a punk or whatever you want to call it, and then be the nicest dude you've ever known. Like, what? And so teachers who knew me were like, why? You are not when you walked in my classroom, That is not who I expected you to be. Like you totally are a different person. Every week my hair was a different color. And so most adults back then were like, did not expect me to be the person that I actually was based on who they saw when they met me, right? And I said, that's intentional. And that blew their minds even more. It's like, I am trying to challenge your perspective on the world, which is that you see me and you expect something, and then you get something totally different, makes you have to evaluate, how are you looking at the rest of the world? So I did all that intentionally, right? So a big part of me thinks towards, like, when I don't have rules that tell me I can't do that, is that something I'd still want to do? Like, would I still want to be that guy? And what does that look like at 40 something, right?
Yeah.
Is it just wearing a t-shirt with a blazer? Like,
I mean, you could, obviously, if you're outside the confines of the Marine Corps, you can do it wherever the fuck you want.
yeah.
But that's different. Though,
You know a lot more probably about my goals and my mindset and my concepts and stuff. So could I still do those things and then be that person? I don't know.
Well, unfortunately, no. If you're going for like main demographics, but that's also like that's a problem.
Can I challenge that? Can I challenge that? Like, can I challenge that structure? Like, can I challenge that mindset?
I mean, you can try to challenge it, but it's more of a commentary on, Americans than it is a challenge on you. You know what I mean?
Does it mean that I'm not being true to myself if I don't try?
No, I don't think so. Because I mean, first of all, do you think you need to do it, or are you just trying to prove a point?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Both.
Yeah.
I think I need to do it because I want to prove a point.
Yeah. I mean, either way. I mean, you know me, man. Like, whatever you're running for, I'm fucking voting for. So.
You can, like, move registered addresses just to vote.
Yeah. Because I've seen, like, you're right. I think that people are just they are used to like these cookie cutter things,
Yeah.
right? And if you're outside of that mold, then people are just like, nah, I'm good. But if you have really good ideas, it should come down to the ideas. Honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. Obviously today because it came down to my partner going to a possible jury duty. She went this week, which is a disaster. If you watch the pre-show, you see why it was a disaster. But I was thinking about like jury duty in general, and like I've done jury duty a couple times. I've been on juries a couple times, and I don't know why we have juries in person anymore for the lawyers to pick and choose who's on the jury. It should be a blank person in another room where you can't see what they look like, and you answer questions based upon, either just the questionnaire. The questionnaire alone should be enough. That should be enough. Because when a lawyer and the judge or whoever else can see the people, that's a problem. Because that introduces bias.
Absolutely. So it needs at least two things when you're talking about that questionnaire. It can't have your name.
Yeah. Or
anything about your demographics on it, right? So it has to just be your personal perspectives on things. So that they can, because I totally understand the screening process. Like, we don't want someone coming into this case who already has a bias against whatever's going on in the case to then not even listen to the material that's here or whatever information is presented and make an informed decision. They're just going to vote a certain way because that's the way they feel about this subject, right? So I get the idea of excluding some people, but not in the system like you're talking about, where you can do it based on and has people's skin color, gender, age, whatever those other things are. So if all that demographic stuff is out, that makes a hell of a lot more realistic system, a fair system. Did you know that promotion boards and stuff in the Marine Corps no longer include the photo?
I heard that. I thought it was a good idea, and people were like, they're fucking vets, man. They're getting mad about it. I'm like, if you're mad about it, then you obviously have implicit bias. If you don't realize it, then that's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, you're part of
the next stage, and there's already serious decision-making level discussions on removing name information and a couple of things too. So to try to make sure that when you look at it, you're evaluating like the Marines' ratings and their performance and their training and their skills and their knowledge and these other things, and not you see a name and can probably make a good assumption based on people's names, like some things you might have bias against, and again, maybe not consciously, and that's not necessarily like if you're intentionally looking at it and making those things, that's obviously wrong, right? But people have those biases, and being aware of that is not a bad thing, right? Being like, look, I need to not know that information so that I can make a fair assessment.
Yeah, I think that when somebody tells me they have no biases, then I think that they're ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have biases. I do my best to combat against them and to recognize them. But if you're telling me that, you have no biases at all, or get the fuck out. Everybody's biased on something.
Yeah.
I
will say, like, my experience being, in many leadership positions in the Marine Corps has formed me to a point where I know that what I care about is people's merit. I know that anybody can be good and anybody can be in a shitbag. So it's not based on people's like race or gender or
real quick.
any of that.
Sorry, even though we're near the end, I really gotta fucking pee, and it's gonna be. I'm gonna come back. It's gonna be like maybe 10 minutes left, but I gotta go.
Good, you're good.
You're back.
So I continued reading because remember I was like, I swear to God, Washington just had the death penalty like as a thing. So I started reading, and it's been back and forth historically through Washington like for a while. Mm-hmm. But it was 2018, like this literally just happened.
Wow.
That the Washington State Supreme Court declared the state's death penalty statute unconstitutional, saying that it was applied in an arbitrary and a racially discriminatory manner, which is part of what I was talking about. Like it's not used in a way that is appropriate to the crimes and like the confirmation of the crime.
Yeah.
It's done more in a, like I talked about with imposing slavery through prison stuff, also being used to remove people because of their race, which is fucking ridiculous. But I was trying to find it. Oh, where was I reading? Okay, so other interesting facts. So each of the states you can click on this page I found, which is super cool. I'll throw it in the links to the thing, I guess. It has an other interesting facts section. So at the time the death penalty was declared unconstitutional in October of 2018, Washington was the only state with an active gallows. I was telling you, they hang people in Washington. I was like, it's crazy. So death row prisoners in Washington were able to choose if their execution would be carried out by lethal injection or hanging. If the prisoner made no decision, the default method was lethal injection. And that's why he was able to, I talked about that one story, that I was able to choose hanging and then not be able to be hung because it would have been cruel and unusual.
Yeah, it's like, it's fucked up all around. Like, getting to a point to where the state needs to kill somebody, a lot of things went wrong. You know what I mean? Both with the individual and just like the punishment. It's just like, there needs to be, I wish there was just better humans, to be honest. That's obviously the best solution, better humans, but how do we get there?
School.
Yeah, well, scarcity and abundance. Yeah.
Because you talk about actually like repaying your debt to society is not taken care of if you just kill them off. But some people are in no position to be trusted for one, or like put in a place where they can pay that back either. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, it definitely depends. But at the same time, it's just like, I think that most people, like, they'll say the statement of repaying their debt to society, but they're really not. Like they're just thrown in jail, and it's just like, it's a debt to society. It's not repaying anything. And if anything, if they're making any sort of monetary anything, it's at the hands of corporations that are abusing them for slave labor. So the whole statement of, repaying their debt to society, like, that's not what's happening in jail at all. And they're definitely not correcting their situation. So
yeah, and that's what I meant, like an honest and like true repaying of, and by society I mean that's a social contract we all have with each other, whoever they broke that specific social contract with. So like you talk about family members, like how could that person honestly and truly do right by them? Like what does that look like? And I honestly have no idea. But if we talked to families of people who were victims for someone who was then, removed from society using the death penalty, some of those would be able to tell us, I would have preferred something else, and
Yeah.
what would that look like? I don't know, and maybe that could help, society understand. Maybe there's another way to do this. And honestly, like in a lot of cases that we're not even talking death penalty, just prison stuff, and they just stay there for way, 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 way too long.
Yeah.
Is like, where is the reformation? Like, where is making them a better member of society a focus of our process rather than just removing them from society? And it's not, in my opinion.
Well,
90% of cases are not focused on that.
yeah, it's one of the many instances in America where we just flat out lie about names of things. Like when you are put in jail, you're put into the Department of Corrections. It's supposed to be to correct like what you did, but that's the vast majority of people. Like they don't correct anything. They don't even attempt to, like at all.
No. Yeah, there's is the time there just on its own supposed to do it with no guidance or mentorship?
No, like if you just throw me in a fucking hole, I'm not gonna learn anything. I'm not gonna learn that first of all that what I did was necessarily wrong. Yeah, it was wrong that I got thrown in here. You know, I get that, but I don't think that there is like, how do I put it? Like, there's no emphasis on like making people understand like first of all what they did was actually wrong, and then how to actually really repay that to the victims of what they've done. Like none of that happens.
You seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
You know, like how they talk about it in there is like everybody in here is innocent, man. So they're never even addressing the fact that they did actually do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good movie. I don't know how you feel about it. I like that movie.
I like that movie too.
I know
Yeah.
the Stephen King book that it was based on is really good too.
I gotta go back and listen to it. You know what I just saw today? Because I was going through pre-orders because I was trying to find another book. Because I just read that book. That was pretty good. But they're gonna release Lord of the Rings on Audible, and Andy Serkis is going to be the narrator.
That dude is really good at voices, like doing
Yes.
many characters. I know everybody like knows that he did Golem or whatever, but like he can do a vast range too. So what would be really great is if they did more like full production quality ones. Where have you listened to any that are like multi-person
Yes.
casts with sound effects and everything?
Sandman. Have you listened to Sandman?
Mm-hmm.
Download Sandman.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
So
listening to a fucking movie.
Yeah, and that's so the first book ever that came out that was like a Star Wars fan fiction after the movies came out was about Thrawn, right? It was the first Thrawn series that came out or ever.
Mm-hmm.
So like the 25th anniversary edition came out, and they did like a full production audio book of that very first book. I was like, and it was amazing. So yeah, full R2D2 sound effects, whoosh doors, like phasers, like everything. I was like, this is nice. This is like
Nice.
full listening to a movie without watching it. And so you have all of the information plus sounds. Like, oh, so good. Yeah, it'd be cool if they did that.
Yeah, Dune did it too. I'm pretty sure. Listen to one of the editions of Dune, and it had full sound effects.
When is the new Doom movie come out?
I think it's this year.
Yeah, soon. Maybe Christmas time.
Fuck.
I'll have to look because I'm interested. I watched even like the sci-fi because it was back when sci-fi is sci-fi still doing the SYFY thing.
I think so.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was right when they started doing that, and I watched the whole Children of Dune series like that they made right after the Frank Herbert's movie, and I still like them. It wasn't perfect, but it's really hard to capture those books perfectly. So.
Yeah, they're good. I was listening to the first book. I need to listen to the rest, but yeah, they're good. And then Foundation is coming out. I don't know if you're an Isaac Asimov fan at all. So Foundation is coming out on iTunes, and I fucking hate Apple, but I'm like, I gotta get it. The
have to go there.
What's up?
Gonna have to go there and get them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get it. I'm already kind of like, they've already gender swapped the main character, but I'm just like, you know what, fuck it, I'll let it go. Hopefully it's good. So it's got to be better than iRobot, because iRobot was a good movie, but it was a terrible adaptation. Like,
yeah.
Did you read the book?
Yeah, no, we talked about this before. Like, I hadn't read it, but when you started describing it, I was like, I feel like maybe I read it a long time ago and just haven't read it recently enough to really remember it.
Yeah.
That the movie didn't match at all.
No, it's basically its own thing.
Total movie. Yeah.
They got the 3 laws. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot what I was saying.
Shit, no, I did too because we were bullshitting for a minute.
Right.
What the fuck were you talking about?
I mean, I guess we could pause for a second. I could look at it.
I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you have to stop.
I'll just stop recording. Yeah.
We'll leave both files and I'm good.
Yeah.
Well,
we got past social contracts. We went back to. Oh, goddamn.
maybe we can kind of figure out how we want to close out, and we'll call it good. Because I think we're, like I said, we're right towards the end of the timeline, anyways.
All right, so let's just talk about as we close it out. I guess maybe what we would say to our younger selves as we're older. I think that's a pretty good way to end it, right?
Yeah. So, what would we say to our younger selves? Do you want to go first, or you want me to?
I can go first, sure. All right, so we are back, and we're going to talk about, as we wrap this up, what we would say to our younger selves now that we're older. For me, I would let my younger self know that you're gonna live for a fucking while, so make it count and keep improving upon yourself, and you're gonna survive, and you're gonna do your best that you can to make a positive impact on, first of all, your kids and your friends and everybody else around you, and things are gonna be all right. And don't be an asshole for no reason. You know, if you're gonna be an asshole, there's times to do it, but it's not to everybody. Don't be an asshole just because you're bitter about what happened to you in your life. So, yeah.
So I'll start by saying I love that some part of both of ours is telling ourselves to not be an asshole. Because what I was gonna say is, for me, a big part of it was keep in mind it's not just what information you're saying, but sometimes how you say it to people.
Yep, I get that a lot.
Matters, because I've always spoken as normally and openly and, you know, with a tone telling people that they're an idiot. And Lance Corporals telling staff sergeants that doesn't work well. So it took me a while to kind of like find the balance, and to maybe like, I use this strategy right now, and it's something that we work towards, which is when you're working towards saying something or preparing to write something, take 30 seconds to think about what it is you're going to say first. And it helps frame it, helps think about it. I guess one thing would be, tell my younger self, PT, hey, start then. Don't start later. Because it definitely took me a while to like really care about it and be interested in it, and make it be a thing that I wanted to do and not just a thing I was told to do. So, get invested yourself in it, because it makes it a lot easier. It actually makes it enjoyable if you focus your mind on it. And then I guess the last thing would be is that you're going to get the things you always hoped you would, which is to have a family and be a father, and you can be that, role model that you were always thinking that you were looking for. And that if that's, because it's, without knowing it, that was your goal. That was something that in the back of your mind you always wanted, and still working on it, because we still keep learning no matter what we do.
Yeah.
But you got that, so good job.
That's awesome. That's a great way to end, man.
So. It was hard to recognize, like, I think we both came from this place a little bit mentally where we're kind of just, again, I'm making some assumptions based on our conversations, but I know for me at least, like, I had an idea of a direction, but I was still kind of lost, kind of floating, kind of uncertain. And then when things finally come together, you realize, like, I wanted this particular thing, or this was definitely needed to be what I was working towards all along. I just didn't know it. So that's that helpful piece of advice. It was to be a good father, be a good husband, like have a family, make that thing strong. That's the piece that really matters, that you felt like you were always missing. I felt like I was always missing, is what I'm really saying. And like it took way longer than it should have to truly and honestly recognize that and make that like a part of me, you know. So.
Yeah, I think along the same lines. Like, so for me, I had an advantage over like most of my peers when it came to my career, because I knew what I wanted to do since I was like 11 years old. I was like, I'm gonna do some computer shit. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be that computer guy.
Yeah.
But I did not put in any effort or cycles into thinking of like, how am I gonna be as a person as I grow and mature, and how am I gonna be as like a partner with, you know, somebody else. And you know, I never thought about having kids, never thought about any of that shit. I just thought about, oh, just get a career. This is what you want to do, so just do that. And I think that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my entire life, was just like focusing on, maybe not necessarily the wrong thing, but not enough of all of the things that I can offer this world. And the younger me would have never been able to understand that, because I thought, like when I was young, honestly, I didn't think I had a lot of worth in the world, and I thought that if I can just do this computer thing, that would give me more worth, when my worth comes from what I can give to other people. You know?
Yeah. Like the not like valuing myself was definitely a big part of the young me's thing. And so for me, instead of having that focus kind of you had on I was like, just have fun. Like whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter, because didn't really give myself much value. So it was more about like enjoy whatever you are doing. I wasn't necessarily like focused or directed towards something. And like I get people asking all the time, I was like, why didn't you go to college? Like you go to my grades. I had good grades. I had every opportunity to be able to do so. There's really no reason I didn't. Most people are like, why didn't you go? I was like, I didn't think I would be able to. I didn't think I could afford it. I didn't think that, honestly, I didn't think I was worth it, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. And so then I convinced myself that this was a way to get to where I could go to college. Because that was kind of how they, you know, that's how recruiters talk about it. They talk about these things and they figure out they're really good at it. And I love lots of the guys I know who are recruiters, that they figure out what it is even when you don't know that you want, right? Like, what is your goal without you even realizing it, and make sure that you understand the Marine Corps can deliver whatever that thing is. And I think that, I mean, obviously for me it did help me get that like direction and unfocused mind. It took a while, but eventually the Marine Corps got that for me. So
yeah, it's good. That's really good. Hopefully this podcast is insightful if you're younger, even if you're older. You know, hopefully it's insightful and it helps people. I think we've been very honest. Both of us have been very honest on aging, because it's good and it's bad. You know, so, and understanding like your faults as you grow. Like, you don't know anybody. I don't give a fuck how old you are. You don't know everything.
Nope.
You make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, recognize them, and then if you can, fix them. If you can't, then that's a different story. If you need help, that's a different story. Find the help. So, yeah, that's another thing that I'm still trudging through. But yeah, so I hope I had fun on this podcast. I hope you did too.
yeah, I did. And if the help you need is like mental health help, there are online options for us right now, especially where. Yeah. I don't say just us, like Marine Corps, like for everybody, with people making efforts to stay home with COVID and everything else. There are online and phone options for mental health things that you can do that are completely free. So if you're not sure and you just want to talk it through with someone, those resources are available. And honestly, it shows great wisdom to recognize that you have something going on and don't understand maybe what the path forward should be, and to seek help with trying to just understand where to go from there. We didn't come across any of these lessons easily. We spent way too long figuring it out by ourselves rather than um, seeking help probably when I should have, at least earlier on, and helping to understand where I was in my life. And it took a lot of hours that I had available to me, obviously, based on not being in a scarcity mindset, to work my own way through these thoughts and through my own life and goals. And that's not what any of us needs to do, because there are people out there who are really good at helping us figure this out.
Yeah, I think this podcast has helped me. I think I'm probably going to go back to some therapy and like talk to somebody again. Because it's been a while. And I think at this point I kind of need it.
So to bring it back to the pre-show, right? Like masks, in America, we need to get past this stigma of mental health, like help, and wearing a mask as being some negative thing. I talked about it with someone today. He's like, I don't want someone telling me I have to. I'm like, and that is the problem we have, right?
And they were in the Marine Corps?
Oh, he's saying as a citizen. We're talking about.
Citizen. Okay.
He did it for a podcast, so it was someone saying like, as a citizen who shouldn't. That's a pretty specific level for a state to be telling you to do something. Pretty freaking specific. And I agree that we shouldn't have to get to the point where it needs to be a mandate. But we also, as a culture, as a society in America, don't wear masks ever. It's like not a thing. So we talked about it where I said if I walked into the office one day because I had a cough and I felt weird wearing a mask, prior to 2019, like I would have not been authorized to do so in uniform. And like it would have, you weren't allowed to because it was against the law to walk into a store covering your face, and like all these other things that culturally are completely saying that that's not normal and not okay, even if I'm sick and I'm just doing something good to help protect society. In Japan, totally normal.
Yeah.
That is totally, absolutely accepted cultural thing, and we need to get there so that people can say I can wear a mask if I want to, and I know when it's appropriate to do so to help make society better. And we're not there, right? So we needed the state to say, hey, look, it's not safe right now. You need to wear a mask. And it's the same on this. It's like, hey, look, you're not okay right now. You need to go get some help. It's where we are with mental health. And at some point, it'll get to where I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm going to go get some help. And then once we transition to that point where people understand enough about it and we've removed the stigma, then we're good. I think that's what needs to shift and change in these topics. But that's just me.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's honestly, man, it's American arrogance, is what it is, and it took me a while to like really understand it, but that's, to me, in my opinion, that's what it is. It's just,
it makes sense because the same applies when you're, in a position of authority and think that you can't show someone any like lack of knowledge or understanding. And I'm teaching people every day. I'm like, you need to be humble because you are not the expert. You don't know what's going on. I don't know everything about everything. You have to go to people who are doing this daily and ask them those questions and be humble about it. And that's, face of surprise on many people as you're teaching it. Like, this is not an American thing to be humble and try to reach out and get help with understanding or learning. So yeah, it's, again, I think all of that, like you said, American arrogance, like, pervades all of these things. And so,
but we're saying that people are going to get so angry about it. It's all good. You know what that is? It's your arrogance.
Arrogance.
Gotcha.
If you're upset about us saying it's American arrogance, guess what that is? It's American arrogance. I like that. That's a good way to deliver it, man.
Yeah. All right. We're past our normal, our agreed to stop time. Which I'm sorry. So
just a little because we started a little late, technically. So.
But I have training tomorrow, which is hopefully will be short. So.
Yep. And I still have to edit a couple videos. So.
I'm definitely not editing shit. I'm going to sleep tonight.
Oh, it'll be in the morning.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you very much for being on the podcast with me again. Missed you, man. Honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad. Hopefully we can get a routine going now that, I'm back on normal stuff, and we'll see how things go. But I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate it, All
right. Cool. Thanks, man. Peace.
Talk to you later. Bye.
But yeah, just before doing this, so my girlfriend, she had to go to jury duty, and obviously she didn't want to go because she's still at high risk for COVID, even though she has a vaccine. So she goes in and she gets an exemption, and then like about an hour or two, like 2 hours ago, she got a call that she's been exposed to COVID. So it's like fuck, you know.
Yeah, they just released today like an update to DoD policy for us to all wear masks again. So everybody's like, sorry, put my foot on something.
It's all good.
Everybody's like, will be required to have their stuff tomorrow. Today was like, obviously we understand if some of you don't have your masks with you today.
Yeah.
But tomorrow you have your masks. So.
Yeah,
I had on. Everybody's like, you don't have to until tomorrow. I was like, yeah, but I had my mask here already, so why wouldn't I wear it if it's enough that we're all accepting that we should be again? I don't know.
Yeah.